Hello, friends, and welcome to the Boot Room, the show where we look ahead to Ipswich Town's weekend game. And it's a bit different this week because the game's not at the weekend. It's on Monday night. It's live on TV. And of course, it's the FA Cup first round at Bracknell Town. Mark, Heath, Stuart Watson here to break that down for you. And so we have to start there, don't we? FA Cup first round, a step 3 side. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, step 3 non-league side. Ipswich are a step 3 side. FA Cup and on TV, two phrases that make Ipswich Town fans shudder. Can this guise of Ipswich Town show that they're a different beast, that times are a-changing? Lots of monkeys been shaken off the back so far this season. The win against Derby came on TV recently. This is a game Ipswich should be winning quite comfortably, really, when you look at the gap in the pyramid. But it's the FA Cup, and the cameras are there for a reason, looking for the giant killing. So, an intriguing tie at the very least. This one, isn't it?
How are you feeling about it? It's got that classic kind of magic of the cup, David Verther's Goliath feel, hasn't it? Bracknell Town, as I say, they're 11th in the Southern League Premier South, which is the same level roughly as Needham Market, of course, also playing the FA Cup first round at Burton this weekend. As a comparison, Town, of course, beat Needham 7-0 in pre-season. They've got several games in hand because they've been really successful in the Cup, the Vase and the Trophy this season, Bracknell. And also they're unbeaten since the end of September. So they're in a good run of form. How are you feeling about heading to the SB Stadium, Stu?
Yeah, it's got all the ingredients from the Bracknell point of view for there to be a potential upset. They are, and we've had their owner and one of their joint managers on the podcast that we do, and they've talked about giving this a real good go. No regrets. They're clearly an attacking football team. They've scored 48 goals in 19 games this season. That's an average of nearly 3 a match. So that gives you an idea of the sort of form that they're in. As you say, unbeaten since the end of September. So I think they're going to give this a real good go and try and leave it all out there. Throw into the mix a tight, small, non-league ground. We're talking, what was the attendance? 3,000, I think they've capped it at.
2,000.
2,000, sorry. But yeah, they're going to be tight on the rails, very different type of surroundings for Ipswich Town. So I think all the ingredients are there from a Bracknell point of view, but I think you need the perfect storm for an upset to come off in these sort of games. And part of that perfect storm is for the big boys to be having a bit of a wobble, to be having a few doubts, to be not in a good place. And I would say Ipswich are in a pretty decent place at the moment. I know we had the stoppage time drama at Charlton last weekend, but they're a settled side that are they've got a bit of rhythm about them, I think, Ipswich Town. So without spoiling my prediction, I do think Ipswich Town will win this one.
Okay. If you want a proper insight into Bracknell Town, go and watch or listen to the latest Kings of Anglia podcast. We had the owner, Kane SB, and also one of their joint managers, Carl Withers, on the show with us. And that was a good half-hour chat about all things Bracknell. But let's talk about Town now then, Stu. I guess the question going into this one, it's usually quite easy to predict Town side, front 3 or 4 aside. But this one, obviously, it's all up in the air. It's an FA Cup game. Against non-league opposition, you'd expect there to be changes, but how many do you think McKenna will make, and how many will he risk making? Because at the end of the day, you want to guarantee that you win this game. You don't want a replay. You definitely don't want an upset. So how would you be approaching this game if you were Kieran McKenna?
I think there'll be plenty of changes, but even with the injuries that Ipswich have got at the moment, they will be able to make 8, 9, 10, 11 changes, and it still be a strong League One side full of first-team players. I've jotted a team down here. It's 9 changes from the Charlton game. Here, I think it will be a change in goal. Hladky, back 4 here. And I've just said I think it will be a team of first-teamers. And the first name I'm going to read out from the defence is going to go against that. I've got Edwin Agbaje at right back, who 18-year-old was did really well in that run to the FA Youth Cup semi-final last year. Thought he had a really decent debut in the Papa John's Trophy against Cambridge recently. Went back and scored 2 goals for the under-21s as captain straight off the back of that. So his confidence will be high. And the reason I've got him in the team is that I think Janoy Donasian, who has played every He's the only outfield player that started every league game so far. Just looks like someone who could do with a little bit of a rest at the moment. So he's the only one that I would say is a proper under 21s player in this team that I've got. Moving on, Keogh and Burgess at centre half. Keogh's obviously not had a huge amount of minutes thus far. I think it's nailed on for him to start in this one. Bit more of a question mark against Cameron Burgess because of those facial fractures that he suffered not that long ago. Remarkably, he's been back on the pitch since then, only for sort of a couple of minutes at the end of a game as a substitute. Is he ready to start this one? We'll find out. He's the man that we're speaking to as part of the pre-match press conferences later on this afternoon. So read into that what you will. Left back, Kane Vincent-Young. We've seen him generally at right back during his time at Ipswich Town, but he's played a lot of games at left back over the years, most notably for Colchester. So I think he's one that will benefit from some games. Central midfield, I've gone for Humphreys and Ball. Ball has obviously had to bide his time at the start of the season with Evans and Morsey nailed on. So I think he's someone that will benefit from churning out the games. And him and Humphreys have had a bit of a relationship going on in the cup games. Humphreys, obviously, with that magic night at Port Vale recently, I think he'll definitely start. So that's the two I've gone for in midfield. Front four, as always, is difficult to call. I've gone with Edwards, Harness, Jackson, Ladapo, but easily could have a John Jules in there, a Connor Chaplin in there. I do think someone like Wes Burns needs to dip out. Leif Davis would probably benefit from a rest. Luke Wolfenden's just become a new dad, so might dip him out for this game. We'll see. But yeah, that's 9 changes in that team that I've read out. But I think you'd agree that that's a team that should be getting the job done at Bracknell Town.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong side, isn't it? In terms of the bench, would you be putting some big names on the bench as well? Someone like Sam Morsey, just to have up your sleeve, just in case things start to go wrong.
Yeah, I think so. I think the bench will be probably a bit of a mixed one or two youngsters from the under 21s with with a smattering of those sort of bigger names that maybe could come on if things do turn a little bit sour potentially.
And what kind of game are you expecting, Stu? We know Town obviously like to play football. It looks like that the pitch at Bracknell is decent, although clearly probably not up to League One standards. Bracknell, when we spoke to them yesterday, said they've got some things up their sleeve in terms of what they're going to try, and I think they're hinting towards high balls into the box being very much among their tactics. You'd expect this to be quite a physical, scrappy encounter, maybe to begin with at least. What kind of game are you expecting?
I have no idea how Bracknell Town play, Mark. I don't think any of us do. All I can go on is the fact that they've scored plenty of goals. Rightly, their manager didn't want to give too much away in terms of style of play. I think if you're anyone who's watched Ipswich Town in preparation to face them, you'd be looking at their weakness being those deep, high balls to the back post, which is where a lot of the goals against have come from in the last 2 games, 4 against Charlton, 2 at Port Vale, of course, just a few days earlier. So I'm sure they'll try and test that. If it is a Burgess and Keogh centre half duo, you'd think Ipswich would be better placed to deal with those. So we'll see. It's hard not to kind of root for the underdogs, even as someone who's going to be going up against them, because the guys that we've had on the podcast have come across really well. This is the romance of the FA Cup. Everybody will be tuning in looking for the upset. But I think Ipswich will hopefully be professional enough to sort of rise above that. You see these games quite a lot where the plucky underdog sticks at it, does really well for maybe the first half, the first 60 minutes, but then the extra athleticism, the fitness, the quality eventually shows. And when 1 or 2 goals goes in, then the floodgates can potentially open. So we'll see.
Okay, before we get to the prediction, and obviously you've already said that Town are going to win. Let's pause for a look at some key stats around this game, Stu. Excellent. Those are the key stats then. It's final question time, Stu, which is always the final question on Boot Room, which is prediction. It's a tough one, this, because it's a game totally into the unknown. But you've already said Town you think will win. They certainly should win. Definitely should win. So how are they going to win, Stu? What do you reckon the score will be?
We just pause for some stats. I'll give you a couple more before we get on to the prediction. 2 wins in 22 in the FA Cup. That goes back to 2011. Last time they faced a non-league side in the FA Cup, Lincoln City lost after a replay. Last time they played on ITV4, Barrow last season went out. We talked about the TV games. That win against Derby recently was only the 4th win in 37 in terms of live TV games. So those stats make for pretty grim reading, and I think that they'll probably feature in the Bracknell team talk before the game. But all that being said, I do feel like this season things are changing for Ipswich Town. They got that win against Derby. So many things that they've ticked off along the way. Can they win 3 games in a row? Yes. Can they stand up to some more physical challenges? Yes. The list could go on in terms of the questions that Ipswich have answered this season, and I think this will be another question that will be answered. I'll give Bracknell a goal because I think they're scoring plenty, and there might be a little moment of doubt or wobble in this game, but ultimately, once Ipswich score, I think they'll go on to win quite comfortably. I've got them down for a 5-1 win. Mark,
is it wrong that I want Bracknell to score, Stu? I just feel a bit of warmth towards them, having had them on the podcast. That it'd be nice for them to score at home, wouldn't it?
It would. Look, I hope the whole evening goes as well as it possibly can do off the pitch. I hope they make loads of money. I hope their players and their staff come away feeling like they gave everything and they've got no regrets. But make no bones about it, I want Ipswich to win. I've had enough misery in this cup competition over recent years. I want Ipswich to get through because who knows what they could do in this competition. I think they've got the depth to go far in the Papa Johns. I think they've got the depth to go through a few rounds in the FA Cup. I want them to get to the 3rd round at the very least. And then who knows what could happen there. You could get a big boy away. How many fans would Ipswich take to Liverpool or Manchester United or Man City or whoever? Imagine if they got Norwich in the 3rd round, and what an occasion that would be. Or just getting a run of the mill Championship side just to kind of test where Ipswich Town are at as a promotion-seeking side against 2nd-tier opposition. So I'm not just going to shrug my shoulders and say I don't care about the FA Cup this season and promotion's the only goal. We've heard enough of that over the years. I think Ipswich have got the squad to try and win a few matches in this competition.
Yeah, certainly a game they should be winning. We hope they do. You're saying 5-1. I'm going to say 4-1. Both of us, I think, would like to see Bracknell score, but then Town obviously clearly winning the game. That's it from us then. If you're going to the game, well done for getting tickets. Enjoy it. Obviously, I know most of you will be watching it on ITV4. Also follow it with us. All the boys will be there. And we will catch you on the next Boot Room.